afternoon, and welcome again to the Purple Inspiration Podcast. As you know, this is a space for extraordinary women leaders who rise above the noise. And today, my guest is a driving force in California politics and someone I'm really proud to call a friend. Catharine Baker is a powerhouse of inspiration, a public policy professional, and former member of the California State Assembly representing District 16. She was first elected in 2014, serving 2 terms. There, she established a very strong bipartisan record, passing significant legislation focused on education, transportation, and infrastructure, and has been a champion for government accountability. She is the director of the University of California Student and Policy Center. This is a dynamic system-wide hub located just steps from the state capitol in Sacramento. She leads university policy programming, a high-profile speaker series, debates, conferences, briefings, anything that helps to engage government officials, lawmakers, business, and civic leaders, as well as UC students and alumni on national and state policy issues. And we'll get into that a little bit later. Previous to this role, Catharine was appointed by former State Controller Betty Yee as a commissioner with the Fair Political Practices Commission. She has always had an interest and a keen eye when it comes to election policy, standards, and ethics. When she's not spending time on her job with her twins, she is proudly teaching archery in the Bay Area. Catharine is someone whose views are always her own. She has served as an exceptional representative and a mentor to women statewide and in the home communities she served here, including Dublin, Pleasanton, Livermore, Danville, San Ramon, Orinda, Lafayette. I am just so very proud to have you with me today, Catharine Baker.
Judy, it's wonderful to join you. You're a great friend. You yourself have a terrific public service record. I love that I finally get to appear on the Purple Inspiration Podcast. You've had some women and leaders that I really admire, and I'm honored to be part of it. So thanks for a chance to visit with you today.
And I want to thank you for the wonderful job you did yesterday as a moderator at the Tri-Valley Mayor's Summit, where we had 300 people. That was such an amazing event, and you did a great job navigating between the 5, I'm going to say the 5 cities, even though we know one is a town.
Danville is a town. That's right. That was a lot of fun. I joke that I always have the easiest job when I moderate that, because I don't have to answer any of the questions. I get to ask them, and I can always just, maybe they won't invite me back next year if I blow it. And so it was a lot of fun. And it's those are the kind of events I love and I'm grateful to be a part of, because they're really about what are the issues, what our local leaders are tackling, both individually with their councils and cities and residents, but then as a Tri-Valley, which is in many ways unique to have 5 different cities or 4 cities in one town working so collaboratively together in a region when usually there's much more of a competition among communities. So that was fun to get to be a part of. Glad to see you there.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I've always admired you, and you know this. You have always been someone of exceptional integrity, and you always are able to get things done. What's your recipe for success?
You're very nice to say that. I'm grateful. I'm still trying to figure out the recipe of whatever's successful on any given day. I could take the metaphor too far and say sometimes I have these favorite core recipes, and then each time I make them, they're a little bit different. It's never quite right. It's never really written down. Like you're known as family gravy or sauce or something, fellow paisan. We can both relate to that. But all I can say is, for a couple of things pop to mind, and they're both 2 stories. So I like to talk apparently and tell stories. And one of the stories is from what my daughter said about me to me early days of the pandemic. Several years ago, of course. And in those first few weeks, when folks were really trying to figure out how they were going to adapt and actually also be helpful, I was making masks. Now, I know looking back, and even at the time, people were like, oh, don't do that. What a waste. Nobody's going to use them. But I was making them by the dozens because it's what I could do. I needed to do something. And once she taught me how to make them on her sewing machine, I went for it, and I kept trying to change the features and add a filter and do this and that. And she says, you know what I learned about you, Mom? You always want to make something a little bit better, right? You want to do something to improve a situation. So make the masks to begin with. And then you probably fixate on how I can get it even better. Keep adjusting, keep improving. I don't know if that's a recipe for anything with me, but I think it's a feature. It could be a criticism that it's you just want to make a situation better. And no matter how small it might be, or maybe in your career, for me, there have been different times in my life where I just wanted to see if I can improve something. And she said that to me, and I thought, well, I'm really glad that's the trait that she's noticing, first of all. And I thought it spoke to me. The other story is from The Devil Wears Prada 2. I don't know if you've seen the sequel that came out. I'm a big fan of both movies.
Me too.
And there's a line at the very end that really stuck out to me that Meryl Streep delivers in the car with Andy as they're recapping their experience together. And she says, I love to work. And I like to be busy and involved and working. And it could be, sitting still for too long kind of gets me, or I start to not feel fully, if I'm not fully utilized, I'm not at my capacity for what I can do, I get very restless. And so those are probably two things that are just self-identified, and one identified from my daughter. I really like to improve a situation, a thing, whatever it is. And I do like to work. I like to be busy and at full capacity. I will say, when I'm not and I shut down, I really shut down and take a pause and a break. But those are some things that come to mind if I had to come up with that. I don't know that that's a recipe for success. That's what I'm a part of. So,
Well, I think it's a recipe for success, because anytime you make something better, you're giving of yourself and you're doing something that's impacting others. And I've always seen that with you. So I applaud you for that.
and likewise, I mean, Judy, you can feel that too. And your whole life has been in one version of public service and giving too. And so you know what that is. And it all manifests for us in different ways, how we turn it in. I'll add, because that, always wanting to improve something is common among a lot of people who want to be involved in their communities, but it's a little different than folks who say, I want to be powerful, or I want to be super rich, or I want to be well known or very popular. Those are all parts or ingredients of somebody's recipe to go with your metaphor, and they lead to different outcomes. And I think our mutual one is we want to improve something and be involved.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's switch to bipartisanship. When you were in the legislature, you worked very closely with Senator Steve Glazer. He was a Democrat. You were a Republican. Yet you all came together and you did, I forget how many town halls. You may know
16,
the number.
16
joint town halls, Republicans and Democrats working together. You're very well known for your collaborative nature. You've always worked across the aisle, whether it's higher education, better transportation, government transparency. And this is an interesting fact. You were reelected in a district where you, as a Republican, in a Bay Area district where Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump by 35%, you were reelected.
By almost 12 points.
By
12%.
Thank you for adding that.
Yeah.
So what's your proudest accomplishment as a state legislator? I mean, you accomplished so much. What's the thing you're most proud of?
Oh my word, that's always a tough question. I will say on that sort of the context that you provided, I'm proud of the overall body of work, which included a focus on getting things done. People use different words to describe that, and that's what I was about. I just wanted to move the needle and improve real life situations. And again, some folks go to the legislature or positions of power in government because they want to rise to the top and be the most powerful person. And trust me, I don't mind having a lot of power. That's fun too. But I think the bipartisan legacy and showing that you get so much more done that is impactful, it is longer lasting, it's not reversed right away or erased. That is, to me, that body of work and that reputation I'm very proud of. That's one of the most proud things. And in many ways, it's not in style. certainly at the national level, and I'm not making a partisan statement here, there have been many constituents in our area from both sides of the aisle who've bemoaned that that's not what Congress has been doing for many years, or what the White House has been doing, or other legislatures, even sometimes California's legislature, where you're less focusing on who is the idea coming from, and therefore do I like it, and how can I perform better, and to sustain my ability to be in this role. You really have to find people who are there to get stuff done, and not focus so much on who's getting credit for it, or which idea was it, which party originated it. So I think that number one, that overall body of work and impression, I'm proud of. And it was certainly with Steve, it was 16 bipartisan town halls, and they were a sight to be seen. They might have anywhere from 300 people to over 800 people. They were unscripted. We took questions from the audience. We didn't filter them out and say, well, this one's a tough one. Sometimes Steve and I were on the dais together, and we were asked about a position that we had the same position on, a topic, or that we voted differently, and we had strong feelings about that they were different, and we had to answer and be on the stage together. And I used to have members come up to me and say, I wish I could do that. And I remember saying, why don't you? I mean, all you have to do is do it. And then I still have people from the community come up to me and say how badly they missed that getting to see that. I was honored to do that also. My very first town hall was with Susan Bonilla, who was an assembly member at the time in 2015. I want to give credit to some other great bipartisan colleagues. Tim Grayson and I did a couple of town halls together. When Eric Swalwell was in office many years ago, we did some town halls and policy issues together on transportation and housing and education. And hundreds of people would attend. They were a real cross section of the community. And I'm so proud of that work. And yes, I can point to many bills that focused on solutions. AB 758 to create Valley Link, which yesterday at the Mayor's Summit, even though with a little bit of my prompting, was identified as probably the single most important infrastructure improvement we could make. Innovation Tri-Valley 10 years ago said that's probably the most life-changing infrastructure project the East Bay could have. I authored the bill with Susan Eggman to get that done, to create the entity that should get that done. I'm very proud of, I think it was 1174, or maybe it's 1674. This was to change the admission standards at the University of California, my current employer, of whom I'm very proud to work with. But 10 years ago, it was identified that they had made an easier set of admission standards for out-of-state students who get charged more tuition than in-state. And what that meant is it was easier to get into the University of California if you were an out-of-state student than our own students who were residents whose families had been paying taxes in California. And I said, no way, and was very proud to change that policy in working with both Tim Grayson and Governor Brown. And ultimately was adopted in budget measures. And many public safety measures, even the parking garage in Dublin. For years, everyone was saying how terrible it was to not have parking so they could commute by BART into the city. Hundreds of thousands of people need to do that every day. And I was proud to get that done. So there are others, but that's a long answer of what I'm proud of in my time in the legislature.
Well, and I just read, I think it was yesterday in the East Bay Times, they had an article, top of the fold, about UC admissions and how more California students were getting in. And the first thing I thought of was, oh, Catharine Baker was really a big part of that. So
I'm grateful you remembered, but most importantly, think about how many students have an opportunity through education opportunity before them because of being able to go to the University of California, and that it is more affordable for their families because they can pay in-state tuition. And what a difference that makes. That is one of the top, proudest policy accomplishments. And then just getting to be at the table when, and this comes from being bipartisan and wanting to focus on solutions. There are a lot of bills that don't have my name on it, but I would go to colleagues and say, look, we need to make this better. Vaccine policy, End of Life Options Act, cap and trade, and our climate policy, and so much more, where bills, I like to think I helped contribute to making them better, because I was willing to work on the issues. So anyway,
Well,
that's it. You should never ask a legislator. That to be like a 20-minute answer.
I've always been so proud of you for the work you did, and that the work you did was relevant to people. Everything that you did changed something that it for to your point made it better. So I'm really proud of you for that. Well, let's pivot.
And I'll just add, Judy, you can decide how strongly to think about this too. Some of those, many legislative officials do this that don't make the top headline, right? They're not the big thing, but they change someone's life tremendously. I had one bill that I'm very proud of that will never be in the headlines, but it was to ensure that children who are the subject of some of the worst violence on them, worst assaults and violence, the most egregious crimes, they would have to testify multiple times against the predator who abused them because of a quirk in California law. And it's a traumatic experience for them. And I authored a bill that was signed by Jerry Brown that said you only have to do it once.
Wow.
It'll be recorded, and that's it. And of course, it's still very traumatic. At the I believe it's Innovation Tri-Valley's Game Changers Award ceremony, one year a young woman was honored. She had been horribly assaulted as a child. And her family came up to me and said, and they were kind of crying, how she was one of the awardees, how they wish that bill had been in place when she had to testify, would have made a tremendous difference in her life. Mm-hmm. They were very grateful to see that it did pass and that other families will, children will benefit from it. It's never going to be on the front page news, but that changes a life. And so those
probably should have been on the front page news.
Yeah. Well, I mean, good to see that it could lead to a better circumstance for someone.
Absolutely. Anyway. Well, let's kind of stay on the, kind of the whole idea of party leaders and the right and the left, and they can't get along, and people have Trump derangement syndrome. They can't stand Donald Trump, or, oh, I can't stand Chuck Schumer, or I can't stand Mondami, or whoever it is, right? Yeah. You were always very independent. You were able to bridge those gaps. And I even recall at one point you saying that you didn't vote for Donald Trump. In fact, you voted for Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, who probably would have been one of the best presidents of all time if we could have convinced her to run. So tell us a little bit, if you would, especially in the environment we have now, the challenges you faced being a consistent, strong, independent voice. Would you have done anything different today? Just tell us kind of what that was like and how it impacts you now.
Yeah, fun question. And that is correct. I believe in 2016, I wrote in Condoleezza Rice. I believe in 2020, I wrote in Larry Hogan. And then in 2024, I wrote in Nikki Haley. And in fact, I had one of those T-shirts. A good friend of mine, a mutual friend of ours, got me the T-shirt that says permanently banned.
I think I even know who that is. So, yeah. Yes.
But I will tell you, look, people have strong beliefs, right? And partisanship, I do have beliefs that are very strong. When you're independent minded and you compromise and you're bipartisan, doesn't mean you're wishy-washy. It means that you're looking for solutions and you're compromising because you want to get to an end goal. And sometimes that's the only way to do it. I feel just as passionately about those beliefs as others. But the real challenge, or some of the challenges I remember as a result, is you have to have an incredibly thick skin. And you might say to yourself, duh, of course you do. But some of the sharpest barbs that come from being independent are from your own family. And I don't mean my loving family. I've always been grateful to them, but your political family. Yeah, as Republican and longtime grassroots Republican supporters were usually the most sharp and cutting in the criticism. I mean, really close friends and colleagues that we might have been in the trenches with, supporting other causes that we mutually believed in. Those were the ones that hurt the most. It wasn't from folks, at the national level. Barack Obama endorsed my opponent in 2016 and did a phone bank for her. What do they call it? Robodial. Or if Democrats, if the Speaker of the Assembly had issued a press release saying Catharine Baker is the #1 target. We want to flip her seat. That's where we're going to put it. That did not affect me in the least. But when close friends I'd been in the trenches and events with for so many years wrote scathing comments, or privately or publicly, because I hadn't voted a party line, or more likely they got a version of my vote, or a incorrect information about it, and they went for it instead of just calling me up and asking me, hey, what's this all about? Can you talk to me about it? Those are the challenges that hurt the most. So when you see people who are taking a stand that's against the party orthodoxy, you do lose money, you lose power. You might not get a fancy office. Steve Glazer knew that. He had his office and chairmanships taken away from him because he was sometimes, often, very, would not be orthodox or party ridden. He went with what he believed in. That's nothing. You can handle that if that's not where your ego is. So that's one challenge that I think is important. And you have to really see when people are going through that. I remember one of the first bills that happened on, and I think my staff could see it personally. It was on vaccine reform and requiring certain vaccines for schools. It was in 2015. And I remember they'd come in and say, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm ready to go home and see my family. I'm getting torn apart by people I know and love. And so be mindful of that when folks are taking that stand, that they're taking it pretty hard from a lot of corners. And the second thing is they're taking it, and the folks on the other side of the aisle aren't necessarily going to come to their rescue. So, for example, within both the party and outside the party, there are folks who would, come to my defense, which is nice. I didn't feel like I needed it, but I was grateful for it. But in the end, when we're calling for more bipartisan leaders, where we're calling for people to not be partisan hacks or orthodoxy, be independent minded, you better be willing to vote for them when it comes around November, because they won't be there, because they're going to lose members of their party. And if that's what you want to see, you have to vote for them. And they won't be in office if we don't take some responsibility for supporting people who do that. And long-winded way of saying it again, but that is something that was a challenge you have to be really mindful of, and important to do. Would I do anything differently today? No. I'm sure
really,
there might be
I'm
camping.
really proud of you for saying that, because it takes a tremendous amount of courage to do what you did and to do the right thing and to not let your party leaders and your party get to you. And you did that. And I was always very proud of you for that. So,
well, I'm grateful. And there were many times where others gave me strength through that as well. And I'll tell you, I had other members come up to me and say, boy, Catherine, I want to vote that way too. I want to take that position too, but I can't. I'd be lit on fire metaphorically by by the party or the activists. Mm-hmm. And even if he or she might have thought that was what their constituents wanted. And I said, look, you're going to get torn apart either way, right? You vote yes, you're going to make these people happy, but those folks over there are going to tear you up. You vote no, it's just the opposite. If you're going to get torn up either way, you might as well vote the way you think is right. So when you put your head on your pillow at night, it's like, well, at least I voted the way I wanted, and not, I can't imagine if you didn't vote the way you believed in and you get torn up. I mean, that's got to stink. So,
yeah. All right. So, you've been a business advocate, you've been an education advocate, you've been a transportation advocate for the people. So what about your new position as director of the University of California Student and Policy Center? You're building kind of a town square, conversations between real people, students, faculty, state legislators. What impact do you want to have on higher education in California as you move forward?
Thank you for asking. This is a great position. I will say the center is just across the street from the state capitol. It was a vision of the University of California, particularly during the pandemic, to have a place that I would say, I use a couple different metaphors to describe. One is it's the public square. It is meant to be a place where the Capitol community, people who are in government and shaping government, and the broader public of Californians can come and debate issues, hear different viewpoints, really have good conversations, become informed, and then leave the building hopefully more informed and more able to pursue solutions, whether they're a voting legislator, they're from the governor's office, they're a state agency. they're a California who votes every time, or someone who's shaping policy, a nonprofit organization, whatever. So that public square, I love. It's a great metaphor for what we're doing. And as a former policymaker who now is a policymaker adjacent, it's a great way to do that because it's I leave the politics. I'm aware of them. I still follow them. I'm not as bound by them. And I leave the politics to the folks across the street. And we really try to focus on substance and good engagements. I love that. And then the other component, other metaphor is it's kind of the front door. It's a showcase of the front door between the university, which has research and expertise in addition to great teaching in just about every area of modern life. And they have a public service mission, which is to provide that data, that research, that expertise, that innovation and ideas to people who are trying to solve problems for California and to be a resource. And so I love that we get to showcase and make UC's expertise available. We serve the entire campus system, not just one campus. And UC has a presence in every single county in the state of California. Of course, the 10 campuses with UCSF as well, and in every single legislative and congressional district. So
Wow.
that's great to do. So with that background on what the center is, and that I'm 2 years into the role now, and their first director, starting from scratch and building it up. I hope to have an impact not just on higher education, but on better policy making that is based on data and research and rigorous debate and conversation, and then leads to more solutions for the persistent problems that face Californians, ones that are right up in our face right now and the ones we should be seeing down the road. And the center is a tremendous vehicle for doing that. And then, of course, creating opportunity for students, both undergraduate and graduate students, to engage with government here in this building and see their future leadership and career. So I love that. And I'm honored to get to do the work and enjoy it. So I kind of have the same commute I had when I was in the assembly and at the FPPC, back and forth to Sacramento.
Well, you've made an enormous difference already in higher education. I can't wait to see how this continues for you. It's just been great. I do want to, before I ask you the last question, I do want to give a little shout out to your colleagues where you are of counsel at Hoge Fenton.
Yeah.
I see them at all of our events here. They have been a tremendous sponsor. I just wanted to mention that because I don't think I mentioned that in your bio.
I'm grateful to still be special counsel at Hoge Fenton, where we get to have conversation. What can we be doing to have more of an impact in our community, for our clients, for nonprofit community? And that's a great thing about Hoge Fenton is they are involved in that way. And of course, we can joke, sometimes you need a lawyer. And I've been with Hoge Fenton since 2011 and grateful to do that right in the Tri-Valley. They've been there for almost 30 years now, and over 80 years in Silicon Valley in San Jose. So thank you for the plug and for them, because, for businesses to take time and effort and resources to be involved in the community isn't always easy. But I leave you to our last question, if it's the last one.
So my last question, this is just a fun question that I've been wanting to know about. So you are very proud of being a mom of twins. You have a boy and a girl.
Yes.
They're both amazing kids. I remember watching them grow up. I'm pretty sure your son was always taller than me.
Yeah. Well, he's 6'4" now. He's taller than I am. It is I think he's still growing. Every time I give him a hug, I'm like, did you grow again today?
So what advice do you have for other twin moms? What did you learn along the way? You've had a tremendously successful career, but you've also been an amazing mom. So what advice do you have?
Well, you hope you've been an amazing mom. That I'm so grateful for them. And hey, kudos to you, because you've got you should be very proud of Michael and his wife and the life that they've built together. So I give props to you as well. I will just say I've got nothing on a triplet mom. When I first found out I was having twins, I will just say I come from a very large family. On my side, it's a very large Italian family, which I'm sure you can relate to. And no one had twins. So I didn't even open that chapter in the book, what to expect when you're expecting or anything else. I go in for the first ultrasound, and it was the shock of my life. And you have a shock, and I think the first thing in my mind was, well, that wasn't like what we ordered. That's not what we filled out the form. Yeah, I didn't think of this. And for the first 20 minutes, I wouldn't say I panicked, because panicking is generally not what I do, but I was just shocked. And then after that, I couldn't imagine having anything else. It just sinks in immediately. And the biggest worry I had, you want your children to be healthy, have them arrive healthy, all 10 fingers and toes, and have a happy, healthy childhood and life. Mm-hmm. And I worried that because I was one mom and they were two, and each child needs so much attention, and from face-to-face eye contact and holding and guidance and attention, I was worried I would not be able to provide it to two little creatures, human beings, and that they would be disadvantaged by that. I remember it made me cry once at some mom's group I was at, a great mom's group. And my advice to twin moms is, you are enough, and you're going to be amazed at what you are capable of and fitting into your life and their life, and you can do it. It's the same advice I would give to a parent of one. If you're a parent of multiples, we say it's the singleton parents. But if you are a parent of any child, you are enough, and you're going to be amazed at what you can fit into your day, into their lives, and do for them. So once you get past the shock, and once you get past worrying if you're going to be able to meet all of their needs, emotional and brain growth and well-being needs, you got this. You got it. So,
well, that is a great way to end this podcast. You are enough. That's become one of my favorite phrases, because there are so many times when we push ourselves as women and we want to get to that next level. And that next level is usually for you and I making something better.
Yeah.
And sometimes in your quest to make something better, you've got some obstacles. And in the end, we are all enough if we're striving for that type of greatness. I am with you that it is not about rising up the ladder. It is all about, what did you do to make a difference? I mean, you had the opportunity to work for Sonny Bono. I had the opportunity to work for Bob Dole. Right. We had great leaders around us who helped shape us, who were men. And I never felt in any way like I couldn't achieve whatever I wanted to try to do. So, and the other thing I would say, my parting gift to everyone is, don't be afraid to fail, because from that you will grow.
Well, I got this from someone else, a very inspirational, Judy. That's right that you say that. And that is, the mistake is out there. The failure is out there. The mistake is out there. Just know that that's coming. And, you're going to get past it. I lost an election for a job that I love, because that's what politics is. You sign up for a position that you might not get reelected and target seats for reasons that may be completely unrelated to what you think is your merit or the work that you did or the other person, whatever. That's politics. And you can pick up and move on to something that is also rewarding, especially if you're, not to be too cute about it, but you do stay true to yourself. Mm-hmm. You don't want to go back through a failure and think to yourself, boy, I wasn't even being true to myself when I did that.
That's absolutely right.
So something to keep in mind.
Well, Catharine Baker, I am so proud to call you a friend.
Likewise.
And I'm we all watch your career as it continues to blossom, and the good deeds and good things you're doing. So thank you so much for being with us today. You are the perfect example for Purple Inspiration. So I admire you so much. Thank you for being with us.
It's great to see you, Judy. I'm looking forward to visiting with you again. Good for you to have this program and to have come up with the Purple Inspiration. I'm looking forward to hearing from more leaders that you interview. Have a great one.
Thanks so much.
Take care.